Innovation in games. Sometimes it can be a great thing to have. You have the opportunity to add in so much new stuff that people haven't seen before in your franchise. New gameplay elements, new story, new lore, all of that. You have the opportunity to bring in new fans, and sometimes that can work out really well. But other times, it really doesn't.
Ever wonder what happens when you take a video game character that's been established as a fast and fun platformer, but you replace the fast and the fun parts with auto-runner and railroaded linear levels? Well, you don't get a super good game, that's for sure. Making a Sonic game, something that should contain free 3D movement and levels with multiple paths to the goal, into something that's a straight line with controls that even Bubsy 3D would laugh at, makes about as much sense as my school labeling Oreos as natural, organic, and healthy. I really don't understand what Sonic Team's rationale here was. But before I dive any deeper into that, let me go over the basics of the game for the uninitiated. The story is a little different from your standard Sonic tale. One day, Sonic is resting in a house when a genie named Shara emerges from the book that he was apparently reading. Shara tells Sonic how her world of the book, the 1001 Nights, is being destroyed by an evil genie named the Eraser Djinn. Sonic agrees to help her out and go into the book to save it. Eraser appears before them shortly after, and he chastises Shara for not collecting the so-called 7 world rings. And to punish her, he fires a flame at Shara, but Sonic steps in to save her from it. The fire turns out to be a curse that will kill Sonic in due time if he does not collect the world rings and deliver them to Eraser. From there on out, the game's story consists of Sonic and Shara running through the various lands inside the book to track down the world rings and the Eraser Djinn. Along the way are a few, odd characters like Alibaba and Sinbad. Or Tails and Knuckles? Yeah, I don't get it. Do these people just appear to Sonic as his close friends? Does Shara see them as normal humans? That's the stuff I need answers to. I gotta say though, I do get a kick out of the story. It sets up a nice reason for Sonic being in such a bizarre place for the game in the first place, and the dialogue is pretty entertaining for most of the time. I have to give major props to Peter Cormacan, Eraser's voice actor, who's deliciously hammy in all of his scenes and honestly just steals the show for me most of the time.
You, blue rat! Have you gathered the 7 rings yet?
And enough of that rat stuff! Seriously!
The voice acting in general is fine for the most part, though Shara's voice just grates on me after a while. Not to mention it's very annoying when she keeps pointing out the painfully fucking obvious.
Be careful not to fall.
But if there's one thing I definitely have to give credit where credit is due, it's the music. Secret Ring's soundtrack is pretty great stuff, with all the songs having catchy melodies that really rock things out. Of course, because of the game's setting, every song has Arabic influences in them, which fits the setting, but also just sounds great in general. My personal favorite songs being the themes of Levitated Ruin and Night Palace. The music's presentation, however, let's just say that it could have been better. More like the presentation of just one song. The top complaint that I have to mention, of course, is the damn theme song of the game. 7 Rings in Hand. If I had $1 for every time the song played throughout the game, I would be rich enough to buy a copy of Sonic Generations. Jesus Christ, Sonic Team, you don't need to play 7 Rings in Hand in every single menu and after every mission in the game. I think now I can talk about the biggest detractor of Secret Rings by far, the gameplay. Sonic himself is controlled almost entirely through the motion controls of the Wiimote. Sonic is always running forward, and to move him backwards, you need to move the Wiimote back towards yourself. To jump, you need to hold down the 2 button and release it. Seriously, I don't think Sonic Team remembered Platforming Controls 101. It's rather simple, honestly. Don't make a character controllable only by motion controls, and don't make them constantly run forward. Later on, you gain access to the last 2 main abilities, Time Break and Speed Break. And they're where the little shiny orbs littered all over the place come in. Collect them to fill up the soul gauge, allowing use of these abilities. Time Break does exactly what it says on the tin. It stops time briefly, allowing you to more easily get past a tricky obstacle or get on a fast-moving spring. The problem with it is that Sonic himself slows down when you use Time Break, which makes controlling him quite awkward. Not to mention, Time Break itself is really situational, and throughout the whole game, I can only say that I use it about 3 times at max. Speed Break, on the other hand, is way more useful, to an extent at least. It's basically this game's boost, a year before the boost became mainstream in Sonic Unleashed. Sonic speeds through the level extremely quickly for its duration, but Speed Break comes with its own set of problems. For starters, the soul gauge depletes far too quickly when using it. Unless you're near a huge clump or a line of pearls, that gauge isn't getting refilled anytime soon. And perhaps even worse is that once you activate Speed Break, you can only move left, right, or cancel it. You can't jump while speed braking and maintain your momentum or anything of the sort, which is a real downer and would have led to a little more variety with the way Sonic controls. Speaking of how Sonic controls, allow me to introduce you to the best part of the game: experience points! In a Sonic game, as you progress through missions, Sonic gains EXP. When you level up, you gain more ability points. AP allows you to equip the game's many unlockable abilities, and they have a variety of different features, of course. Things like Pearl Collector, which attracts nearby pearls to you, Fire Gaze, which adds a fiery attack aura to Sonic's Stomp, H Expand, which increases the range of Sonic's homing attack, and so on. But like with the Soul Gauge abilities, there are problems with this system too, and arguably worse ones. There are abilities that are gated behind certain amounts of experience, and behind getting a certain time in a mission. Okay, so the problem with the experience requirement lies within the way that the experience system works. You see, when Sonic takes any damage at all, he loses experience points. And goddammit, that's the most frustrating thing about the EXP system. If you're trying to get an ability from a mission but you take more than a couple of hits, your ass can kiss that ability goodbye, and you gotta restart the mission from square one. Who would design an experience system like that? And that's not even covering the fatal flaw with the existence of the abilities either. Quite a number of them are dedicated to improving Sonic's control, I'm serious. Making him turn left and right better, increasing his max speed, shortening the charge time for his jump, making mid-air movement easier, and so on. It's like some kind of sick joke. They were clearly aware of how poorly Sonic controls by default, but instead of adding these unlockable abilities to his default moveset, you have to suffer through a bunch of missions to unlock the better control first. Again, think about any other platformer. What if in Super Mario World, you couldn't use the run button until you collected 70 coins first? What kind of ass-backwards design logic is that? Now, speaking of the missions, let's talk about those. Progressing through the story requires completing them, of course, but here's the thing. You unlock a ton of missions at once after completing another one, but the game doesn't tell you which mission is the plot-relevant one. And unless you know beforehand, you can expect to choose a mission at random, spend a bunch of time completing it, but then there's no cutscene, and you just wasted your time. If the game could at least give you a hint about where you should be going next, that would be fine enough, but it tells you nothing. The missions themselves? Well, they're certainly a thing. There are 8 worlds total, though the first one is basically a tutorial more than anything, so we'll just say 7. Each of these worlds begins with the same mission, get to the goal. After this mission is completed, the world's various other missions open up. This is more or less where the meat of the game lies. These missions are made from random chunks of the original mission, and can be as mundane as defeating every enemy in the level, as annoying as racing a blue orb to the goal, or as infuriating and hair-rippingly frustrating as safely gathering some stupid-ass dinosaur eggs and bringing them to their nests. I just keep asking myself, how on earth did these missions get approved? Were the level designers just gods at their own game and they didn't see them as frustrating? Or did they not care? Did none of the QA testers at least point out that many of the missions could do well with having the difficulty toned down a notch? Well, look guys, I get that the further the player progresses through the game, the higher the difficulty should get. That's difficulty curve, and that should be expected. I understand that. But this game takes it too far. Not to mention, the difficulty can just spike suddenly, as early as the second or third worlds. giving you missions that might seem easy on the surface, but have some really cruel layouts, and this just shits all over the pacing. One key problem besides the level designs themselves are the enemies, or more specifically the enemy placement. It's really hit or miss, and half the time it seems like the hazards and enemies are just slapped into a random part of the level with no care or thought given to how they might affect the player. They can drop out of nowhere, surprising you and unfairly dealing damage as a result, accentuating my earlier point about the badly designed experience system. And can I mention the world bosses? Not every world has one for some reason. The bosses that are in the worlds are not exactly my cup of tea, with the exception of the first boss, which I actually find pretty fun. The rest are simply too annoying or just a chore to fight. Simply put, they're just not fun. It's either a waiting game, or the boss is running away from you and you need to catch up, homing attack on its weakness, and attack, and repeat. The fight with the Eraser Djinn himself is also infamously annoying for first time players. I've fought him enough times that he's not too much trouble for me, but damn, I'd be lying if I said he didn't kick my ass when I first played the game. It just seems like the bosses were either poorly designed or just not tested enough to see if they were either frustrating or fun. And believe me, that difference matters. Well, I think I should probably wrap up the story now. After collecting all 7 world rings, Sonic and Chara finally have their showdown with the Eraser Djinn. After the fight, Eraser escapes to another room where he reveals to Sonic that in order to activate the world rings, sacrifice is needed. Unsurprisingly, he tries to kill Sonic, but Chara steps in and is killed instead. Eraser then begins to transform, but as he is, 3 world rings of negative energy get ejected from Eraser for some reason, and into Sonic, who becomes Darkspine Sonic, a super edgy recolor that's sure to make any 10-year-old scream. Sonic takes the fight to Alflayla Walela, a disgusting, incomplete monster that really makes me wonder what the developers were smoking when they came up with that, as with a lot of things in this game. After a sudden, complete change of gameplay and a lot of questionable Wiimote shaking, Eraser is defeated, and with Eraser's lamp, Sonic wishes for the book to be restored, Chara to be revived, and Eraser to be sealed inside the lamp forever. Chara, though, is crying for some reason, and because the writers clearly didn't know how to end the game, they tried coming up with a profound line for Sonic to close it out on. What does he say?
I wish for a mountain of handkerchiefs. Now, just let yourself cry, as much as you need to. You'll have plenty of handkerchiefs to help you through it.
Sonic and the Secret Rings. It certainly tried, sort of. After looking back at the game, I can still say that it's not a very enjoyable experience, at the very least not on your first time playing. In the end, what really hurt this game was just the lack of traditional movement. I mean full 3-dimensional, 360-degree, non-auto-running movement. Without a doubt, this game would have been vastly better with these changes in mind, but as it stands, Secret Rings is something I would only recommend to Sonic fans that haven't played it yet. As a game standing on its own, it's not an enjoyable experience, and that's a shame for the first Sonic game to release after 06. But hey, after this, Sonic and the Black Knight and Sonic Colors began to give new life to the franchise. There's always a plus to these things eventually, right?
Well, that wasn't exactly the most enjoyable experience. But I have to say, 12 years after Secret Rings has released, Sonic is doing a lot better nowadays in terms of his games. We've had gems like Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, and then Sonic Forces. I think it's safe to say that Sonic is on the right path, and he'll be on it for at least a while. Yep. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? I like Forces! It's fun, damn it!